Beloved, the calendar of men is rushing forward, but the calendar of heaven is already written. August 26, 2025 is not just another day. It is a day marked in eternity. A day when the veil between time and destiny becomes thinner. A day when the chosen will be tested, refined, and lifted higher. Do not mistake it for chance, for nothing in God's plan is by accident. On that day, August 26, 2025, the world will look at the surface and see just another date on the calendar, but heaven will see a moment of separation, a time when those who are chosen will be distinguished from those who merely blend with the crowd. For God has always set apart his own in times of shaking, and the Spirit whispers that the coming season is not about titles, not about appearances, not about those who wear religion as an ornament, but about those whose hearts have been marked, sealed, and chosen for such a time as this. Beloved, when the storm of history rages and nations tremble, it is in those moments that the chosen are revealed. Just as wheat is separated from the chaff when the wind blows, so it will be when the winds of trial sweep across the earth. And the ones who know their God will stand strong while the rest are carried away in confusion, for the world may call them ordinary, but heaven calls them chosen. Think of a soldier on the battlefield. When the explosions shake the ground and the smoke blinds the vision, it is not the uniform that proves his courage, but the way he stands when fear demands he fall. I once read of a young man who served during a great disaster. When a massive earthquake hit his nation and buildings fell, people ran in panic and many hid under the ruins. But this man, though terrified, ran toward the cries of the trapped, pulling strangers from collapsing walls with his bare hands, ignoring the danger to himself. And later, when asked why he did it, he said these words, "Because I could not stand still while others perished." And that, beloved, is what it means to be chosen. Not that you are spared from the shaking, but that in the shaking you cannot remain silent. You cannot remain still, because something inside of you burns with a fire that compels you to rise. And this is the same fire we see in the story of Daniel. For when Babylon demanded that the chosen ones bow to its idols, Daniel refused, though it meant being thrown into the lion's den. And when the decree of the king went out that no one should pray to any god but him, Daniel did not change his habit of kneeling before the Lord 3 times a day. Though he knew the eyes of the wicked were watching him. And beloved, do you see what happened? The test came not to destroy him, but to reveal him, for the lions could not touch him because the hand of God was upon him. And that is the mystery of the chosen. When the day of separation comes, the world thinks it is watching your destruction, but heaven is preparing your elevation. The stage of trial becomes the platform of testimony. The den of lions becomes the place where kings recognize the God you serve. So it will be on August 26, 2025, when many will hide in fear, many will compromise to save their reputation, many will bow to the pressures of the age, but the chosen will rise like Daniel, not with arrogance, not with pride, but with the quiet strength of those who know their Redeemer lives, and their light will shine in the darkness, exposing the difference between those who merely profess faith and those who live it with every breath. Beloved, hear me. To be chosen is not to be exempt from trials. It is to be sustained in trials. It is not to avoid the fire, but to walk through the fire without being consumed. It is not to escape the storm, but to walk on the waters while the storm rages around you. The chosen are those who cannot be explained by logic or by the systems of this world. For when others fall, they stand. When others despair, they hope. When others curse, they bless. When others bow, they rise. And the difference is not in their strength, but in the one who dwells within them. And perhaps you feel ordinary today. Perhaps the world has told you that you are insignificant, unnoticed, or unworthy. But remember this, when God chooses, he does not choose the mighty, he does not choose the noble, he does not choose the wise by worldly standards, but he chooses the weak to shame the strong, the foolish to confound the wise, the rejected to prove his acceptance. And if you are marked as chosen, then the day of separation will not expose your weakness, but his power in you. Imagine the early church, believers who had no wealth, no armies, no influence, yet when persecution struck, when emperors unleashed their fury against them, they did not hide their faith, but many went to their death singing hymns, forgiving their killers, radiating a peace the world could not comprehend, and their testimony shook the Roman Empire until the gospel spread across the world. That same spirit dwells in you, beloved. That same fire that sustained Daniel, that same power that emboldened the martyrs, that same light that separated the chosen in ages past will separate the chosen again on August 26, 2025 and beyond. And so I tell you, do not fear the shaking, for the shaking is the stage upon which the chosen are revealed. Do not fear the separation, for separation is the proof of your calling. Do not fear being misunderstood, for those who shine with eternal light will always be misunderstood by those who live only for the temporary. Instead, prepare your heart, fix your eyes on eternity, and stand ready, because the day is coming when the difference between the chosen and the ordinary will no longer be hidden, but will blaze like fire for all to see. And in that moment, beloved, let it be known that you were among the chosen who stood unshaken. The fire is coming, beloved, and when it comes, it will not ask your permission. It will not wait for your comfort. It will arrive unannounced and burn away all that is false, leaving only what is real. And this is the destiny of the chosen, to walk through the fire, not to be destroyed, but to be refined. For every trial in your life is not the enemy's last word, but God's hidden workshop, where he takes what the enemy meant for harm and turns it into glory, shaping you into the vessel he intended from the beginning. And though we fear fire because it hurts, because it exposes, because it consumes, the truth is that fire has always been the mark of transformation, whether it be the blacksmith hammering metal in the flames until it becomes a sword, or the potter placing clay in the kiln until it hardens into strength. And so too does God allow his chosen to endure the furnace, so that their testimony may not be shallow, their faith may not be fragile, their love may not be counterfeit, but their lives may become living proof of his power. I once read the story of a woman who lost everything in a single day when her home burned to the ground. Her family's memories, her possessions, her treasures gone in smoke. But instead of despairing, she stood before the ashes and declared, "The fire destroyed my house, but it purified my heart." And in the years that followed, she rebuilt her life not with bitterness, but with joy, using her tragedy to inspire thousands who had suffered loss. And when people asked her how she found the strength, she simply said, "The fire revealed what could not be destroyed." This, beloved, is the mystery of the chosen, that when they go through fire, they emerge not weaker but stronger, not empty but fuller, not bitter but radiant. And is this not the story of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego? For when King Nebuchadnezzar built a golden image and commanded all people to bow before it, these three refused, though it meant death. And the furnace was heated 7 times hotter, so hot that the flames killed the soldiers who threw them in. But as they stood in the heart of that inferno, bound and surrounded by flames, something astonishing happened. Their chains burned away, but their bodies were not consumed. And even more wondrous, a fourth figure appeared with them in the fire, one like the Son of God. And when they came out, the Bible says not a hair on their heads was singed, nor was the smell of smoke on their garments. Do you see, beloved? The fire did not destroy them. It revealed the presence of God in the midst of them. It destroyed only what had bound them. And it turned their trial into a testimony that shook the king and the empire, declaring to the world that there is no other God who can save like this. So it will be with you when the fire comes. The enemy thinks he is throwing you into ruin, but God is preparing to meet you in the flames. The world thinks it is watching your end, but heaven is writing your beginning, for it is in the fire that the chosen discover who walks beside them. And it is in the furnace that they learn that true freedom is not the absence of heat, but the presence of the one who is greater than the fire itself. Beloved, understand this: the fire of refinement is not punishment, it is preparation. It is not condemnation, it is consecration. It is not God's anger, it is his love. For whom the Lord loves, he disciplines, and he does not leave his chosen untested, because he has destined them for greater things. And greater callings require greater fires, just as gold requires a hotter furnace to shine in its purest form. And though the fire may come through trials of sickness, of loss, of rejection, of betrayal, or of persecution, every flame you face is not meant to end you, but to strip away what was never meant to remain, until only Christ in you, the hope of glory, shines forth. Perhaps today you are in such a fire, you feel pressed, you feel broken, you feel as though your prayers are unheard and your strength is gone. But remember, beloved, the chosen are not defined by the absence of fire, but by their faith in the midst of it. The chosen are not those who never fall, but those who rise again and again because their Redeemer lifts them up. The chosen are not those who never weep, but those who even in tears hold to the promise that joy comes in the morning. So take heart, for the fire is not your enemy. It is your passage. The furnace is not your grave. It is your womb, birthing you into a new level of faith and purpose. And when you come out of it, you will carry a testimony that no man can silence, no demon can steal, and no storm can erase. This is why the chosen are unstoppable, why they shine in every generation, why their voices echo across time. Because though the fire rages, it cannot quench the spirit within them. And though the world seeks to silence them, their songs rise louder from the ashes. And so, beloved, when the fire of August 26, 2025 comes, when trials intensify, when the heat rises, when the tests burn hotter than before, do not shrink back, do not give in, but stand firm, for just beyond the flames is a greater glory. And the very fire that was meant to consume you will become the fire that carries you. And those who watch will say, surely their God is with them. Boldness is not born in times of ease, but in moments when everything in you wants to shrink back, when fear whispers that silence is safer, when the world demands your compromise and your flesh cries for comfort, yet something deeper within you, something eternal, refuses to bow. And beloved, That is the call of the chosen in these last days, the call to boldness, to speak when silence is demanded, to stand when the crowd kneels, to shine when darkness presses in. And this boldness is not arrogance. It is not pride. It is not the loudness of the flesh, but the courage of the Spirit, a holy fire that comes only from knowing who you belong to, who walks with you, and who holds the final word. For the enemy thrives on intimidation, and the powers of this age roar like lions to silence the truth. Yet the chosen must remember that lions roar loudest when they feel most threatened, and the louder the roar of the world, the greater the sign that heaven's voice is about to be revealed. I once read of a young college student in a nation where faith was persecuted. She was told by her professors to denounce her belief in God if she wanted to pass her final exams, threatened with failure and humiliation. But instead of surrendering to fear, she stood in that classroom and declared before everyone, "I cannot deny the one who gave me life, for even if you fail me on earth, he has already given me eternal victory." And though she did fail the course, something unexpected happened. Her boldness inspired dozens of other students who had hidden their faith to step out of the shadows, and together they began a prayer movement on their campus that grew so strong even professors eventually respected their courage. That, beloved, is boldness, not the absence of consequences, but the refusal to let consequences define your choice. And this is exactly what we see in the book of Acts, when Peter and John were dragged before the Sanhedrin after healing a lame man at the temple gate, and the religious rulers threatened them, commanded them never to speak again in the name of Jesus. But Peter, once a man who denied his Lord before a servant girl, now filled with the Spirit, looked those authorities in the eye and said, "We cannot help speaking about what we have seen and heard." And though they were beaten, though they were imprisoned, though they were mocked, they did not cower. And when they returned to the believers, they did not pray for safety, they did not ask for protection, but they lifted their voices together and cried out, "Lord, consider their threats and enable your servants to speak your word with great boldness." And the place where they prayed was shaken, and they were all filled with the Holy Spirit and spoke the word of God boldly. Beloved, that is the spirit of the chosen. They do not beg for an easier path. They ask for stronger courage. They do not pray for smaller battles. They ask for greater boldness to face the giants before them. They do not live for the applause of men, but for the approval of heaven. And so the call to boldness is sounding louder as August 26, 2025 approaches. Because the days ahead will demand more than passive faith. They will demand the courage to stand in the face of ridicule, the courage to speak when the world calls it hate, the courage to live holy when compromise is celebrated, the courage to proclaim truth when lies are declared as light. And this boldness will not come from your own strength, but from the Spirit of God, who fills the chosen with power, with clarity, with unshakable conviction. Perhaps you feel timid. Perhaps you have been silent too long. Perhaps fear has chained your voice. But remember, this boldness is not about personality. It is about presence. The presence of the living God within you, the same presence that turned Moses, who once stuttered, into a prophet who spoke before Pharaoh, the same presence that transformed Gideon, hiding in fear, into a mighty warrior who led an army of 300 against thousands, the same presence that filled Peter and John to defy the threats of rulers. That same Spirit dwells in you, and when you yield to Him, your voice becomes stronger than fear, your faith becomes louder than the world, and your stand becomes a testimony to generations. Beloved, the call to boldness is not just for preachers, not just for prophets, not just for leaders. It is for mothers who pray for their children when culture demands compromise, for fathers who lead their homes with righteousness when society mocks integrity, for young people who refuse to bow to peer pressure, for elders who declare that the faith of the fathers will not die in their generation, for every chosen one who carries the light of eternity in a darkened world. And when you walk in this boldness, understand that the world may reject you, but heaven will honor you. Men may mock you, but angels will stand with you. Trials may surround you, but the glory of God will rest upon you. This boldness is not reckless. It is rooted in love. It is not to crush, but to save, not to destroy, but to declare. For boldness without love is noise, but boldness with love is the voice of God Himself speaking through His chosen, shaking the nations and awakening the hearts of the lost. And so, beloved, when the day of testing comes, when the powers of this age rise like Goliath to intimidate, remember David, who did not cower before the giant, though he was only a boy with a sling, but declared, "You come to me with sword and spear, but I come to you in the name of the Lord of hosts." And it was boldness that brought down the giant, boldness that silenced the enemy, boldness that revealed the power of God. The same will happen again, for the chosen of this generation will rise not with fear but with faith, not with trembling but with testimony, not with compromise but with conviction. And though the world seeks to silence them, their voices will grow louder, their light will shine brighter, and their witness will echo through eternity. So hear the call, beloved, The call to boldness is not a suggestion, it is a summons, it is not optional, it is essential, for the days ahead will not tolerate lukewarm hearts or silent lips, but only those who dare to live unashamed of the gospel, unafraid of men, unshaken by trials, for they know that the Lion of Judah roars within them. And if he is with them, who can stand against them? Beloved, there are seasons when it seems that the heavens are brass, when prayers rise like smoke but no answer descends. When doors remain shut, though you have knocked until your knuckles bleed. When blessings feel delayed, withheld, or locked away, and your heart whispers in the midnight hour, has God forgotten me? But I tell you this in the Spirit, there is a time appointed when the floodgates open, when what was withheld is suddenly released, when the delays collapse under the weight of divine timing. And that time is coming for the chosen, for August 26, 2025. And the season it represents is not just a day on the calendar, it is a signal of heaven's release, a moment when the long hidden blessings will break forth like rivers in the desert, and those who have sown in tears will indeed reap in joy. For the chosen are not called to live in perpetual lack, but to be vessels of overflowing abundance. Not always in worldly riches, but in a greater currency peace when the world is in chaos, joy when sorrow surrounds, provision when famine strikes, hope when despair reigns. I recall a story of a man who, after years of struggle, after losing his job, his health, and even the support of friends, reached the lowest point where he sat in a small, dimly lit apartment, weeping because everything seemed lost. Yet it was in that moment of utter brokenness that he chose to lift his voice in worship, and days later, without explanation, a door opened. He was offered a job he had never applied for, a position higher than the one he had lost, and not long after, the very sickness that doctors said would cripple him vanished in a way no medical reasoning could explain, and he testified with tears that it was as though heaven had been holding back a flood only to release it in an instant, overwhelming him with blessings until his cup overflowed. This is the way of the Lord. He is never late, though we think he delays, for he is not bound by our clocks, but moves according to his perfect calendar. And when his moment comes, no power of hell, no chain of man, no decree of kings can stop what he has ordained to pour out. And is this not the story of Job, beloved? A man stripped of everything, his wealth gone, his children buried, his health shattered, his friends accusing, his wife despairing. And for chapter after chapter, it seemed as though heaven was silent while the enemy triumphed. But Job clung to faith even when he did not understand, declaring, "Though he slay me, yet will I trust him." And at the appointed time, God spoke, the storm broke, and what happened? The Lord restored his fortunes, not just what was lost, but double, blessing him with greater than before, proving that waiting is not in vain, that faith is not wasted, that the silence of God is not his absence, but his preparation for a greater release. Beloved, this is the pattern. Delay precedes release. The wilderness precedes the promised land. The midnight precedes the dawn. The cross precedes the resurrection. And so too in your life, the struggles and waiting are not wasted seasons. They are the proving ground of your faith, the womb in which your blessing is formed. And when the release comes, it will not trickle but overflow. It will not barely meet your need, but exceed it, pressed down, shaken together, and running over. And understand this, blessings are not only material, for some of the greatest releases are invisible yet eternal. The release of peace that surpasses understanding when your mind once battled torment, the release of forgiveness that frees you from chains of bitterness, the release of purpose after years of wandering, the release of favor that opens doors you could never force open on your own, the release of answered prayers for loved ones who returned to faith after years of rebellion, the release of strength when you thought you could not take another step. Beloved, the enemy trembles at the release of blessings because blessings birth testimonies, and testimonies birth faith in others, multiplying the light until darkness has no hiding place, which is why you fight so hard to delay, to discourage, to convince you that the blessing will never come. But hear me, your waiting is not in vain. Your prayers are not forgotten. Your tears are not wasted, for the Lord keeps them in his bottle, and the appointed time will reveal that not a single moment of your faithfulness was overlooked. So as August 26, 2025 approaches, take heart, for the season of release is at hand. And what you thought was lost forever may yet return. What you thought was barren may yet bloom. What you thought was finished may yet begin anew. And when it does, you will know that it was not your striving, not your effort, not your wisdom, but the hand of the Almighty who remembered you, who saw you in the secret place, who heard the cry of your heart, and who chose to bless you not for your sake alone, but that you might become a blessing to others, a vessel of overflowing grace in a dry and weary land. Therefore, do not grow weary in well-doing, beloved, for in due season you shall reap if you faint not. And when the release comes, it will silence your doubts, it will shame your enemies, it will magnify your God, and it will mark you forever as one of the chosen through whom heaven's blessings flow. Hope, beloved, is the anchor of the soul, and in a world drowning in fear, uncertainty, and despair, hope is not a luxury but a necessity, and for the chosen it is more than a wish. It is a certainty rooted in the promises of God, and as August 26, 2025 approaches, it is not merely a marker of shaking or testing, but a signpost pointing to the nearness of redemption, the reminder that though the night deepens, the dawn is near, and though the world trembles, the people of God have reason to rejoice, for their deliverance is closer than ever before. Think of it this way: when a long winter drags on, when snow buries the earth and the trees stand lifeless, it seems endless, yet the smallest green shoot pushing through the frozen ground is enough to declare that spring is coming. And so it is with the chosen. Every answered prayer, every sign of grace, every whisper of his presence is like that shoot, a pledge that redemption is not far off but right at the door. I remember the testimony of a man who had spent years in prison for a crime he did not commit, and for over a decade he lived behind bars, forgotten by the system, abandoned by many, yet he held on to hope. And one day, unexpectedly, new evidence came forth, and he was set free, walking out of those gates not as a bitter man, but as a living example that waiting with hope is never wasted. And he said, "Every day I woke up in my cell, I told myself, today could be the day, and one day it was. And beloved, that is the call to the chosen, to wake up every morning with the declaration that today could be the day. Today could be the day the door opens. Today could be the day the chains fall. Today could be the day the trumpet sounds. Today could be the day redemption draws near. Near." And is this not exactly what we see in the days of Noah? For 120 years, he built an ark, mocked by neighbors, ridiculed by a generation that lived as though judgment would never come. Yet Noah built with hope, each hammer strike an act of faith, each plank a declaration that God's word is true. And when the rain finally fell and the ark rose above the floodwaters, Noah discovered that his hope was not misplaced. And after the flood, when the waters receded and the rainbow stretched across the sky, God gave a sign, a reminder not of wrath but of mercy, not of destruction but of hope, that he had not abandoned creation but set his covenant in the heavens as a promise of redemption. Beloved, the rainbow was not just for Noah, but for every generation to know that no matter how fierce the storm, God's mercy remains, and that his redemption is always near for those who trust him. And so it is with us. Every shaking in this world is not a signal to despair, but a reminder that the day of redemption is closer. Every crisis is not the end, but a prelude to the unveiling of glory. Every trial is not meaningless, but a trumpet call to lift up your eyes, for your salvation draws near. The chosen do not look at the world with fear, but with expectation, because where others see endings, they see beginnings. Where others see ruin, they see renewal. Where others see collapse, they see the hand of God preparing the stage for his greatest acts of deliverance. Beloved, redemption is not a distant dream. It is a certainty that has been sealed by the cross, confirmed by the resurrection, and guaranteed by the Spirit within you. And every sign of these times is not a reason to fear, but a call to rejoice, for it tells you that the king is at the door, the bridegroom is preparing for the wedding, the dawn is breaking over the horizon. And so, in these days leading toward August 26, 2025, lift your above the chaos of headlines, above the fear of nations, above the noise of division, and fix them on the eternal hope that does not disappoint, for the one who promised is faithful, and he will not delay beyond the appointed hour. Hope, beloved, is not denial of reality, but the proclamation of a greater reality, the reality that what is unseen is more lasting than what is seen, that the storms of earth are temporary, but the redemption of God is eternal, that no matter how dark the valley, there is always a shepherd leading his chosen toward the light. And when you carry this hope, you become a living sign to others. You become the rainbow after the storm, the green shoot after the winter, the testimony that though the world shakes, God still reigns, and though men despair, God still saves. Therefore, let your life be a beacon of hope in these days. Let your words carry redemption to the weary. Let your actions shine with the light of eternity, for the chosen are not called to hide, but to declare, not called to fear, but to shine, not called to sink into despair, but to lift their heads and proclaim that redemption is nearer than when we first believed. And when that day arrives, whether it is August 26, 2025, or a moment beyond, it will not catch the chosen unaware. For they live with lamps burning, hearts ready, eyes lifted, hands steady, voices declaring that their Redeemer lives. Beloved, do not waste this hope, for it is the treasure that sustains you in trial, the song that carries you through the night, the anchor that holds you in the storm, and the sign to all creation that the story is not over. The best chapter is yet to come, and the chosen will not only witness it, but be part of it, shining as lights in the darkness, radiant with the joy of redemption, unshaken, unafraid, and unashamed, for they know their hope is not in this world, but in the one who is coming soon. Beloved, the question is not what will happen on August 26, 2025. The question is, will you be ready? The trumpet of heaven does not sound for the careless, but for the prepared. Do not sleep while the hour approaches. Rise, for you were chosen not to be defeated, but to overcome. The darkness may deepen, but the chosen will shine. The shaking may increase, but the chosen will stand. And when history looks back on that day, let it be said of you, you were ready, you were faithful, and you were found among the chosen.